Advisory. Some episodes of the 1836 podcast are not intended for all audiences due to details that might be considered disturbing. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
This episode of the 1836 podcast shares about the England-Arkansas food riot of 1931. In 1897, the town of England, Arkansas was incorporated in central Lonoke County between Pine Bluff, Jefferson County, and Little Rock, Pulaski County, named after John Calhoun England, a Cotton Belt Railroad lawyer and landowner who subdivided the area into lots. Situated in one of the world's richest agricultural regions, the town prospered in the early 20th century as wealthy landowners employed tenant farmers and sharecroppers, both black and white, to cultivate cotton and corn, the economic staples of the post-Civil War Reconstruction South. But by October 1929, the stock market crash plunged the United States into the Great Depression, unraveling England's prosperity just 14 months before the events that would thrust it into the national spotlight. Earlier, in 1927, a devastating flood had struck the region, followed by killer tornadoes in the spring of 1930, setting the stage for further calamity. The drought of 1930 to 1931 then descended, centered on 8 southern states but 16% worse in Arkansas, ravaging 23 states along the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys and into the mid-Atlantic. Rainfall plummeted to 35% below 1929 levels, and Little Rock endured 71 rainless days by August 2nd, with temperatures peaking at 113 degrees Fahrenheit. During one 43-day stretch, daily highs hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit or more on all but one day. Cotton production and prices fell dramatically, livestock weakened, and the land parched, while crop losses ranged from 30 to 50%. T. Roy Reed of the Arkansas Agricultural Extension Service warned that only Benton County had enough food and feed for winter, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's meteorology chief feared catastrophe without rain, which never came. Tenant farmers like H.C. Coney, a 46-year-old working 41 acres of cotton near England with his wife and 5 sons, struggled most acutely. Having rented land his entire adult life, Coney later recalled, "I have tried to get able to buy me a home, but about the time I thought I was about to reach the goal, along came 1930 and buried me alive. Many lost savings when the Citizens Bank and Trust Company closed, and a 2006 recollection from a longtime resident noted, people straggled along the county roads begging for food. There was no welfare, no social security, no nothing back then. When Red Cross aid arrived in late 1930, it proved inadequate for England's desperate population of sharecroppers, unemployed field hands, and stranded drifters who had come to pick crops that died in the drought. By December's end, ration forms ran out, and the Red Cross, one of 29 stations in Arkansas, began turning away families. On Christmas Day 1930, the Arkansas Red Cross director discovered planters had pocketed funds meant for sharecroppers, prompting a pledge to distribute food in January, though this promise faltered amid bureaucracy. Meanwhile, Arkansas's Democratic Senators Thaddeus Caraway and Joe T. Robinson pushed the Senate to pass a $60 million drought relief package in December, but the Republican-led House cut it to $45 million for feed, seed, and fertilizer, explicitly excluding food, a decision that would soon fuel further tension. On January 3, 1931, in the 7th month of the drought, H.C. Coney reached his breaking point after a neighbor tearfully confessed her children hadn't eaten in 2 days, pleading, "Coney, what are we going to do?" As he later told a magazine, "Something went up in my head." Gathering 47 farmers, some armed, he drove into England to demand relief from the Red Cross. Initially approaching Mayor Walter O. Williams and City Marshal W.S. Wayne, who urged them to wait, the group instead gathered in front of a grocery store. By January 4th, as reported on the Arkansas Gazette's front page, their numbers swelled to 300, mostly white men, marching from the Red Cross relief station to surround stores, demanding food. Joined by wives, the crowd grew to 500, half-armed, shouting, "We're not going to let our families starve. and we want food and we want it now. Albert Walls, Lone Oak's Red Cross chairman, explained to a Gazette stringer that the station had exhausted its requisition blanks, forms needed to order food from merchants and bill the St. Louis Red Cross, halting distribution. Though well-behaved, the farmers' threats to take food alarmed merchants, who conferred with the Red Cross. Local lawyer George E. Morris attempted to calm the restless crowd, but merchants, many broke themselves, acted swiftly. With hastily prepared requisitions and Red Cross promises of reimbursement, they supplied $1,500 worth of staples, $2.75 per family, or 2 weeks' rations. By evening, 300 to 500 people left with food, averting violence in what became known as the England Food Riot. Morris reflected, "These men and women who came here today just simply got hungry, that's all. When I saw those women crying openly and begging food for their children, they can't tell me they are imposters." A part-time Associated Press stringer dialed his editors, and the story erupted nationwide. On January 4th, the New York Times reported 500 or more farmers and their wives, half, said by City Marshal W.S. Wayne, to have been armed, stormed the business section here late today demanding food, while the Chicago Daily Tribune blared, "Disease and hunger stalk England. ARC, school children in rags, help needed at once." Governor Harvey Parnell and the Arkansas Drought Relief Committee had downplayed the crisis, despite State Health Commissioner Charles Garrison's warnings of rising pellagra deaths. President Herbert Hoover, favoring self-reliance, left relief to private entities like the Red Cross, whose wealthy local leaders resisted direct aid, fearing hoarding. On January 6th, Senator Caraway invoked the riot to introduce a $15 million food loan bill, which the Senate passed but the House killed. Senator Robinson then amended an interior bill with $25 million for the Red Cross to supply food, passing the Senate but failing in the House. On January 7th, Will Rogers wrote in his syndicated column, "It took a little band of 500 simple country people to demand food for their wives and children. They hit the hearts of the American people more than all your senatorial pleas." The media storm, lambasting Hoover's cold, selfish heart in the Newark Journal and demanding Parnell's resignation in a Chicago letter, shamed both leaders. Harvey Couch, State Drought Relief Committee chair, brokered a compromise adding $20 million to the $45 million bill, implicitly usable for food loans, sending over $3 million to Arkansas. After Hoover rejected his January 16th plea for aid, Rogers visited England on January 23rd, touring with local media and Red Cross officials. Launching a 50-show, 18-day tour across Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, he raised $3 million with national donations, enabling the Red Cross to feed 500,000 Arkansans daily by February's end. In spring 1931, a reporter found Coney in a leaky shack, walls patched with newspapers, an atlas and Bible on the mantel. His $195 loan, approved then canceled by resentful locals, left him musing, 3 winters like this one would see them organized. By August, a bumper crop allowed England's farmers to send 13 truckloads of food to Oklahoma miners, prompting Rogers to write, "Now that's remembering, ain't it?" On October 29th, Caraway entered St. Vincent's Infirmary with a kidney stone, dying November 6th of a blood clot at age 60. Parnell appointed his widow, Hattie Caraway, to his seat. She defied expectations, winning election in 1932 as the first woman senator. In 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt's landslide victory over Hoover ushered in the New Deal. The Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933 reduced cotton production, introducing soybeans to stabilize England's economy, though tenant farmers like Coney saw little gain. Infrastructure, railroads, electricity brought fortified foods and nutrition education. The riot, sparking a transformative moment, shifted public expectations of government in crises, proving local and private aid insufficient, a lesson still resonating nearly a century later. As the Dust Bowl loomed, England's stand on January 4, 1931, had ignited a national debate on fair distribution, leaving a legacy etched in America's response to hardship.